Last but not least, the Secretary of Commerce representing the governor today, and we know that today is a big day for you and the governor and the state. So, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Mark. The governor sends her regards, and she's very, very grateful, Mark Haywood, for the convenings that you do along these lines annually and in smaller settings all through the year. And I've had the chance to see Mark in the course of this year with an incredible amount of admiration in Washington as he helped to create a new support structure for the new SBA administrator, lending his services from here in Rhode Island. Mark continues to serve on a regional basis as a regional administrator.
Nope, we got a new one.
In another region.
Oh, in another region, yeah.
I am accurate, am I not?
Yes, you are.
In an acting capacity, in addition to serving Rhode Island, and we're grateful to our regional administrator here in Rhode Island. Mark, what you do is incredible, and your advice and counsel here is amazing. Together with Liz Tanner, now our DBR director, the Department of Business Regulation director, who does an absolutely stellar job. She came out of the Commerce Corporation, promoted to DBR director. Together with her and Chambers of Commerce, Mark, you and Liz and others are brainstorming ever more ideas on how we can help small businesses. So thank you. We're very, very grateful. How about a round of applause for Mark Haywood? Incredible job he does.
We don't generally allow that because my wife says just applauding encourages him to talk longer, so.
That's very, where there have been over 60 graduates who are small business people who are getting training assisted by philanthropy from Goldman Sachs and expertise right here on the ground in Rhode Island and housed at our Community College of Rhode Island, where small business people are getting the technical assistance and the advice they need to succeed in business and have access to a new $5 million loan pool that parallels the loan pool that the governor and the speaker and the Senate president set up at over $5 million for these small business loans that are being churned out. Main Street, we recognize that the front door for many of our small businesses in Rhode Island is in a main street in one of our cities and towns. So we've created an improvement fund where we help cities and towns upgrade the storefronts, the street furniture, the lighting, whatever it takes in a commercial strip in our cities and towns. We've done over 18 of such projects across the state, and this number is climbing thanks to the legislature and the governor getting together and making that happen. You're going to see this year that there's going to be some new ideas that attach to that for Main Street businesses to help provide even more access to capital to help along our key commercial strips. Those kinds of improvements happen in favor of small businesses. But listening to the many outstanding remarks today, and like my colleagues at the podium here, scribbling away and taking notes, I did want to, with Mr. Haywood's permission, note just a handful of points that I think are extraordinarily worthy of follow-up. All of them are. But very quickly, from the Regulations Committee, Gary, the idea of updating our building codes at the local level, very welcome. We've introduced a bill in the legislature for the General Assembly's consideration that would now allow the state to give a small dose of dollars to a city or town that wants to upgrade its planning or zoning or building code to meet the needs of the 21st century, to make things easier for businesses. Liz Tanner is the pioneer and the author, and that will be reintroduced this year for the consideration of the legislature. We want to help cities and towns make it a lot easier to get the job done at the local level. E-permitting is flourishing at 18 and counting municipalities across the state. We're taking sometimes dozens of forms for building and zoning and demolition and other purposes that affect small businesses and cutting them down to 0 in-person forms. All can be done online in a jiffy, and some of the cities and towns across our state, like Pawtucket and East Greenwich and others, are really getting it done, 18 of them and growing. Main Street, I've already pointed out that we have a program that makes capital investments in those entry points, but Miriam, there will be new Main Street measures in the upcoming governor's package. Stay tuned for that. I think the tax holiday idea merits exploration and what we can do with that over the years. Not to say that that can happen this year, but very creative idea. And the notion of construction mitigation to help those businesses that are affected by, let's face it, the mini building boom that we're beginning to see in Rhode Island. There's a reason that we have the highest construction job growth rate in America, depending upon the month you ask. It's because we have so much construction going on. businesses that are expanding, roads and bridges that are being improved, but it does affect businesses. We now have a procedure in place where RIDOT in particular contacts Commerce personnel and they work out a procedure when there is to be RIDOT-related construction. Can we expand that to other agencies in government? Doris Blanchard has been a terrific liaison for this and many, many purposes at Commerce. Please talk to Doris about it. Please talk to Liz about it. We're open to even more happening, but there is a procedure in place, in part, Mark Haywood, because of this forum and because of the staunch support of advocates like Chair Deborah. We are getting the job done on a preliminary basis regarding RIDOT projects. Emerging markets, Sandra and Oscar. The idea of uniform process for loan applications, especially as we're gearing up and really ramping up the granting of small business loans, the first ever sponsored by the state, with the Treasurer's remarkably terrific efforts around helping banks and other lending institutions get the job done. I think that has merit. We should explore that together. Let's form a working group, Mark. Let's look at whether that's feasible. I love that idea. Economic development, Mark, Dion. We fully embrace, among all of the points you've made, the notion of a sense of urgency, that just because we're seeing economic progress, just because our GDP is growing quickly, just because our tax rates are lower on a relative basis, we ain't done yet. There's a lot more opportunity that needs to be provided to Rhode Island businesses and Rhode Islanders. Workforce development, John Gregory. John Gregory, you're a phenomenon. Thank you for your incredible partnership every single day. But one of the things you pointed out, and I'll conclude on this note, is the essential nature of communication. You said it in the workforce context. But you pointed out that there are mechanisms that if we think creatively, we can help get the word out on all the things that are happening under this governor, this speaker, this Senate president, all those at the front of this room and beyond. You talked about the United Way 2-on-1 system. I think that's a terrific idea, plugging in all the more for non-emergency purposes in a mechanism like 2-on-1 and the United Way, which is an inherent clearinghouse with credibility. I've actually seen it done in other places. Mark Haywood, with your permission, I think that's another point to follow up on. Thank you so very much for the invaluable forum you provide.